Ela surgiu ao lado das transformações industriais do século XVIII, como forma de propagar o conhecimento cada vez mais necessário nos 4 cantos do planeta. Na forma de cartas, ajudou a propagar a revolução científica e educou aqueles longe demais para se formar. A cada avanço das tecnologias, ampliou seu alcance, pelas ondas do rádio ou na TV, onde aqui no Brasil, o telecurso foi responsável por um dos mais bem-sucedidos programas de educação à distância.
Os compressores de ar comprimido, os atuadores e as válvulas são alguns equipamentos que formam um sistema pneumático.
Today there's a confusing array of instructional media to choose from. This presents a problem for anyone designing instruction.
Se sempre esteve presente em seus diversos suportes, foi a união das redes, da facilidade em produzir vídeos e a febre dos canais da internet que revolucionaram a educação à distância. Salman Khan cresceu na Louisiana, filho de pais imigrantes da Índia e de Bangladesh. Ele criou a Khan Academy a partir da ideia de ensinar matemática para sua prima Nádia, colocando vídeos no YouTube.
The story of the Khan Academy starts in 2004 when I was working as an analyst at an investment firm, and a cousin needed help in math, and so I offered to tutor her remotely. She was in New Orleans, I was in Boston at the time, so we started doing this over the phone. We would use the internet to see each other's writing, and she did well, and I started writing software for her to give her practice problems and to see how she was doing. And you fast forward 2 years, I had now moved to California, and word had gotten around in the family that tutoring was happening. So I was tutoring about 10 or 15 family members every day after work. And at around that time, a friend of mine said, well, my concern was I was having trouble scaling myself up. I had a job, I had all these cousins that I was tutoring, friends. And he said, well, why don't you put some lessons on YouTube? And I thought it was a silly idea. I thought, YouTube is for cats playing piano, not for serious mathematics.
Hey, everybody, it's LeBron here. I got a quick brain teaser for you. What are the odds of making 10 free throws in a row? Here's my good friend Sal with the answer.
That's a great question, LeBron, and I think the answer might surprise you.
A partir daí, os vídeos viraram um enorme sucesso na rede e que deu início a essa organização que hoje disponibiliza aulas nas mais diversas disciplinas, além de se tornar uma das principais plataformas para se pensar a educação nesse mundo digital.
Endoplasmic reticulum. It's fun to say. Endoplasmic reticulum, maybe a good name for a band.
Certainly the availability of the video production technology and the hardware technology and the software technology, what you've seen me do today, I've done on a laptop that you can buy for a few $100. I've used software that was $100, and I'm in business. I have a production studio. So I think that's much more accessible. And then on the student side, I think that there was a time where we had computer labs throughout campus. We're having a number of computer labs that we're taking offline because every student has a laptop, for the most part. So I think you kind of have a ubiquitous, technology that students have. And I think also within some of the learning software as well, we're able to do more rigorous online quizzes and online assessments and things of that nature.
A experiência de Khan tornou-se grande demais. Foi quando ele decidiu se dedicar integralmente à Khan Academy. Logo chamou a atenção de gigantes, como a Fundação Bill e Melinda Gates.
He's taken all this material and broken them down into little 12-minute lectures.
E o Google.
The goal is I keep making videos, we get other people to make videos, we translate them into the languages of the world. Lemon Foundation is doing amazing work in translating the content. But more than just videos, we create an entire platform so students can learn, they can do exercises, as many as they need. There's game mechanics, they get badges, they get points as they get more and more problems right. We can create tools for teachers so that they can see how students are doing. And so we started building this. We're now a 40-person team. It's being used by 6 million students around the world. They've done 1 billion problems. They've watched 200 million videos. And it's being used, and it was somewhat surprising to me, it's being used in 20,000 classrooms already to really rethink what a classroom can be.
Assim, a segunda lei de Newton, esta é talvez a mais famosa, esta nos dá a famosa fórmula força é igual a massa vezes a aceleração.
A Khan Academy no Brasil começou como começou lá fora. Primeiro traduzindo os vídeos e disponibilizando eles no YouTube, no site da Fundação, e conseguimos aí 2 milhões de aulas assistidas já, e isso vai crescer. Tem 400 aulas traduzidas e mais 600 que vão ser traduzidas nesse ano. Mas o mais bacana é o que está acontecendo dentro da escola. Nas escolas públicas, aqui de São Paulo inicialmente, a gente trabalha com um software, né, inspirado na Khan Academy, onde cada aluno trabalha no seu computador, o professor sabe como cada aluno está indo, e o professor é um maestro, ele está olhando aqueles dados, ele aprende com aquilo e ele intervém. Então você não precisa esperar uma prova no fim do bimestre para saber sobre os seus alunos. Todo dia, todo minuto, o aluno vai tirando o que é o melhor dele, ficando estimulado para aprender mais.
27 vezes 48 é igual a 1.296.
A Fundação Lehman virou parceira global da Khan Academy. É um dos maiores parceiros da Khan Academy no mundo, hoje junto com o Google e a Gates Foundation, né? Então isso colocou o Brasil um pouco no centro da agenda da Khan Academy. E uma das demandas que veio é exatamente que a gente possa pensar conteúdos que são especiais para o Brasil, que ele não tenha gravado ainda e que ele possa eventualmente gravar. Então tem muitas dimensões dessa parceria que podem ajudar a educação brasileira.
Presta bem atenção na conta que a gente fez antes e na conta que você vai fazer agora.
The Lehman Foundation, to their credit, when they really approached us and we really understood what they were about and what they were doing, we're like, we should really work with these folks. And so I would say on the whole planet, they are, out of all the foundations, they're the ones that we're working with in the most substantive way. They're the ones that are dedicating the most resources to their country. They're doing the most serious pilots in the schools.
Não foram só os alunos do ensino básico que descobriram as facilidades do método que tira o foco do professor e permite criar seu próprio ritmo de aprendizado. Atualmente, é fácil encontrar cursos de grandes universidades disponíveis gratuitamente. O professor James Green, da Universidade de Maryland, dá aula a quase 10 mil alunos em seu curso atual.
So we can make it a bit larger.
20 years from now, will people still come to classes?
I think they'll come to classes, but probably not for lecture. And one thing that we're doing increasingly at the University of Maryland is a concept called the flipped classroom. And so in that way, we have began actually recording a number of our lectures and posting them online for students. And you essentially will do your lecture content at home, and then you'll do your homework in class. So when the students come to class, they're working in project teams. The faculty are circulating among them, giving feedback, giving them challenges, things of that nature. And so it's a way of making the classroom experience more than I come to class to watch a lecture. I'm actually coming to class to, engage in learning.
O brasileiro Rafael Pinto é um dos alunos espalhados pelo planeta. Encontramos com ele em um café no Rio, que também se transformou em sala de aula online.
A vantagem de educação à distância oferece mais oportunidades de interagir com alunos no mundo inteiro, centenas, milhares de alunos, por exemplo, estão fazendo o mesmo curso online. Você perde um pouco do contato com o professor, por exemplo, ou os alunos, mas também eles oferecem fóruns de discussão, onde você pode fazer projetos, trabalho em equipe, fazer apresentações, escutar os professores por várias ferramentas que oferecem pelo esse tipo de curso. Então, a vantagem também é que você pode fazer no conforto da sua casa, você pode ir para um lugar como esse, restaurante, onde você pode tomar um cafezinho, fazer o curso, e evitar trânsito para ir para uma sala física, né?
So I think the overall movement for more and more knowledge to be put on the internet, and not just videos, but interactive software, everything, and making it free, I mean, that's a win. The world wins. I'm a father. I want my children, whether it's for-profit, non-profit, I want them to have access to that. With that said, Khan Academy is a not-for-profit, and I personally have an opinion in the education space. Not-for-profit, make sure that you're focused on the important things as opposed to maybe something else. The MIT and Harvard initiative is not-for-profit, and we're actually very close to them. And I would suspect over time, actually the gentleman who runs it was my former professor. They're taking it in a slightly different dimension. They're going much more university courses. Let's virtualize it. So you have to register. You don't register, but you start the course and you go at a set pace with other people, and then you finish it. Ours is much more on demand, as you need it, move at your own pace. So I think it's very complementary approaches, and I think to some degree, as students become very advanced on Khan Academy, we actually eventually want to cover everything, but if they run out of content on Khan Academy, we can say, hey, look, there's this very advanced course that MIT is offering. Why don't you take that? And vice versa, MIT can help us with maybe help developing algebra assessments, or because if they bless the assessment, then people will take it very seriously. So I think it's a very healthy thing going on.
A educação à distância não chega a ser uma novidade, mas a tecnologia por trás dela não para de se transformar.
What is the role of technology inside the classroom?
Well, you know, when you think about technology, you should never just use technology for technology's sake. We should try to define what is the ideal education experience. Don't even think about technology. Say, what's the ideal? Well, you know, the ideal would be customized learning. My child gets exactly what he or she needs when they need it. When they need a human being to help understand them, they have the human being. When they need more problems, they have more problems. If they have a gap in their knowledge and they're embarrassed to ask someone, they can go get a resource and learn it themselves. And when you define education in that way, then you say, okay, now how do we do it? How do we practically do it? You could obviously, if you were very wealthy, you could hire 1 or 2 or 3 tutors for just your child to do that, but that's not practical. And there was no easy answer for that 30 years ago. There was no way to do it, and that's why schools are the way they are. But now, I personally think we do have the tools. One of them is technology, where what computers are good at is coordinating information. So now you can have 30 kids all going at different paces, give information to the teacher, let the teacher know where his or her time might be best spent, open up class time so it's for interactivity.
I think that we're seeing certainly a question about the technology. You know, there's certainly perhaps older faculty that feel that online is just not the quality that face-to-face is, and that things will always be what they are now. I think there are other people that are on the opposite end of that think that, well, you know, if I can get my lectures online, well, all universities go out of business. And to me, that sounds a little bit like what we thought with the internet and online retailing 15 years ago of, well, if I can shop online, then all the malls will close. All the retailers will close because I can order everything I want online. You know, we haven't seen that.
A grande questão hoje é repensar, de fato, o que é uma sala de aula em mundo conectado.
Most of the debate is actually talking about the wrong thing. They assume the system. They assume that the kids will be all learning at the same pace. They'll all learning the same things at the same time. They'll be sitting in a room of 30. The classroom is fundamentally based on a lecture, and students get grades. Even if you get a C on something, you move on to the next concept, even though you had gaps. What I talk about is it's actually time that we rethink that model. That model actually comes from the 18th century Prussians. It hasn't really, and this is a global model. Everywhere in the world they're doing this model. And that's the fundamental flaw, is that you have a model where even though we recognize that humans learn at different paces, we don't let them learn at different paces. What online, some of these tools do is gives an opportunity for students to address their weaknesses without feeling embarrassed. This is why I think my cousins liked at least my videos sometimes better than me, is that there's no judgment. They didn't have to feel like they were wasting my time. They could pause, they could look up things. And because they have access to that, the classroom itself doesn't have to be based on the lecture. The lecture can happen at a student's own time and pace, and now the classroom can be about interactivity. A student's working alongside the teacher, a student's working with each other. So instead of it just being a passive model where you just listen and take notes, it's an interactive model where you're being taught and you teach.
One thing about education is that it's pretty much focused on the text, while we live in a multimedia society. So do you think part of the challenge is actually moving away from the text and using more video websites and like photos and things like that, or the text will be there forever?
The text will always have a role. But I think right now the textbook is a very central role in the process. I think it's going to take a more marginal role going forward, because if you think about what a textbook does two things. It tries to explain a concept to you, and usually most students have trouble reading a textbook, understanding what it's saying. And so my personal belief is done well, on-demand video is more effective than a textbook. Because you hear the person, you hear the intonation, you hear the intuition. On demand, if there's an error, it can be fixed overnight, as opposed to a textbook, you have to wait 3 years. The textbook publisher doesn't know who's reading what's effective, what's not. Online publisher, you can say, hey, that's popular, this is effective, do more of it. The other thing the textbook does is it gives you practice problems. If it didn't have practice problems, it would just be a nonfiction book. And we've all done it, the few practice problems, and they give you the answer for every other one at the back of the book. We think, once again, online is much, much better, because you get as many problems as you need. You can get the steps to the problem that you don't know how to do. There's a community of people who can help you if you get confused. The system knows what you know and what you don't know. What did you get right? What did you get wrong? Based on that, we can recommend other things to you. You can do all the analytics. We get 3 million exercises done every day. So we can use that information to really understand how we can make the experience better.
Em mundo multimídia, é difícil competir com a quantidade de estímulos que podem atrapalhar o aprendizado. O jeito é se aliar aos games e tornar a educação algo cada vez mais interessante aos alunos.
Sai da adição, a gente ganha um planeta e a gente vai para a subtração. Depois da subtração, somando decimais, aí vai indo. Até acabar esse jogo.
Se você passar os 8 níveis sem errar nenhum, você ganha só. Aí ganha só 2 vezes.
So another issue is about gamification and storytelling in education. So a lot of people actually say that video games and the video game structure is important for education. Do you think that is the case?
Yeah, the video game industry has really perfected how to make someone addicted to something. The point is that the video game companies, there's so much we can learn from. They are more sophisticated than anyone else at understanding what is appealing to the human brain, what gives you satisfaction, how do I get you to engage more and more and more. So we talk to a lot of video game companies about how do we make our content more engaging. We have some basic game mechanics, points, badges, stars that you can get, but we want to do more of them. And for people who say, oh, no, games don't belong in education, game mechanics, I say, what are grades? Grades are a game mechanic. They're just a bad game mechanic. They're like, do this and I'll give you an A. Do this, I'll give you a... That's just a bad game mechanic. There's many, many more sophisticated ones where you can get badges and prizes and you get responsibility within the system. And so I think if we can leverage the same things that make you addicted to Angry Birds, if we can leverage that in education, that's a win for society.
Se os resultados de cálculo ou os fundamentos da física são sempre os mesmos, nas ciências humanas, tudo parece ser questão de ótica. Cortés foi grande descobridor ou invasor de terras estrangeiras? Depende de que lado da história você está.
Everyone has biases based on where we grew up and what we've been told. And in history, it's a very touchy subject. Some people would say Columbus is a hero. Some people would say he's a tyrant. Some people would say the pioneers who settled Americas were heroes. Some people would say that they subjugated people and they killed people. So it's a deep, heavy, and sometimes very emotional debate. And the way I think about it is, in a traditional classroom, a professor has an opinion. In fact, many history professors get a career out of having an opinion, often a very a new opinion or sometimes even an extreme opinion. And if they're talking to the students, no one else is there to check them. They say whatever they want, and the students take down the notes and then they take the exam. Even if you're writing a textbook where other people can read it, you write the book, you get a few of your colleagues to check it, and these colleagues are going to be the same race as you, the same religion as you, grew up in the same country as you, probably the same gender as you, and they say, oh yeah, it looks good to me. And you say, okay, this is the history then, and you put it out there. What's exciting about the internet is, I've done a few history videos. We want to do more. We want to find more people who can do more history videos. And I try my best to be as unbiased as possible. But I start my video saying, look, I'm trying my best to be unbiased, but everyone has some innate things that might come out based on what I focus on, what I don't focus on, so take it all with a big grain of salt. And at first I was very worried. This didn't happen in my algebra videos. And it didn't happen in the history classes that I was in. But then I said, why didn't it happen in the history classes? I grew up in Louisiana, and when the teacher says something, the Chilean kid should have said, no, you're wrong. This is the American view of history. So the beauty of the internet is you put it out there, you're going to get people around the world commenting on it. And so I think the way that we address it is we try to get multiple viewpoints making the videos. We try to get people who are as intellectually honest as possible. But the fundamental check on them will be that we have an open discussion beneath that everyone can see. As long as people are respectful, we show that if they say, Sal, you're making no sense, you're 100% wrong, as long as they're respectful, keep the comment there, let other people say that, look, there's another viewpoint.
You also decide whether you can use what's available or adapt what's used in other courses, or perhaps you have a valid requirement for a new media.
Nosso programa fica por aqui. Não se esqueça de comentar, fazer sugestões.
At home in your spare time, you can get your career diploma or even your degree. Choose from any one of these courses: high school, TV VCR repair, computer programming, auto mechanics, bookkeeping, learning the personal computer, electrician, legal assistant, animal care specialist, interior decorating, child daycare, medical dental office, gun repair, florist, teacher aide, catering and gourmet cooking, electronics, air conditioning repair, drafting, hotel restaurant management, fitness and nutrition, PC repair, or get your degree. You can major in business management or accounting. Compare your present salary with the money you could be making in any one of these careers. They'll be repeated for you at the end of this commercial, so have your pencil ready to jot down the course you're most interested in. Then call the ICS toll-free number, and we'll send you one of these exciting career packs absolutely free.